As the dangerously low temperatures do make their way to North Texas, MedStar is pleading with residents to be on high alert for hypothermia and frostbite. You can protect yourself and your loved ones against serious health problems by wearing lots of layers, hats, scarves, and boots. You'll also want to cover your face and your mouth if possible and limit your time outdoors.
We're anticipating by the end of this week, we're going to see hypothermia cases, cold-related illnesses, similar to what we saw in February of 2021 during similar weather. So we know that we're going to have a bunch of construction workers who are going to get hypothermia. We know we're going to have elderly patients who are in cold environments. They're going to get hypothermia.
He says that's why in these types of conditions, it's so important to check on all of your elderly or ill relatives and neighbors. Coming up at 6, we're going to tell you some of the warning signs of hypothermia and frostbite so you know what to look for.
You as always, and as the temperatures drop across North Texas this week, we know first responders are getting ready to respond to any cold weather emergencies. Chances are we might see some. Olivia Leach with how you can keep yourself safe when those frigid temperatures hit.
The mechanics at K Cowboys Auto Repair in Fort Worth work outside all day long.
We have to check the used tires in the water to make sure they're good. Your hands will get pretty cold, like it feels like they're going to fall off.
They wear gloves and have heaters running, but they're bracing themselves for the colder weather ahead.
I'm going to have to get me some big old puffer jackets. This jacket's not going to work for them.
MedStar in Fort Worth is prepping to respond to hypothermia, frostbite, and other cold weather-related illnesses in the days ahead.
When the temperatures get to be 10 degrees, 9 degrees with wind chill, we know that we're going to have a bunch of hypothermia patients.
They're stocking their ambulances with more IV bags, heating pads, and blankets so they can rapidly warm patients in an emergency. Most at risk are people who work outside, the homeless, and the elderly. That's why it's important to check on your elderly loved ones and also know the signs of hypothermia.
You're going to start shivering. Shivering is a normal reaction to your body to try and generate heat. Once the body is no longer able to compensate, then the person will become altered mental status. They may become unresponsive.
Experts say that's when you should get inside immediately and call 911. And if you do have to go out in the cold, you should wear warm clothing like coats, gloves, hats, scarves, and boots. Wear several layers of loose-fitting clothing. Avoid getting wet and limit your time outdoors.
We always have the heaters on inside the office, so if we get a little too cold, we go in there, warm up a little bit, then come back and work.
And if you're using alternative heating sources like space heaters, you should have a carbon monoxide detector in your home.
You really need to make sure if you start to get nauseous, if you start to get lightheaded, if you have a headache, those are all signs that you might have carbon monoxide poisoning.
Olivia Leach, CBS 11 News.
Some really good things to keep in mind.
As Dan mentioned, the cold front is still a couple of days out, but first responders are getting ready, and it's not too early for you to get prepared to deal with the freezing temperatures. Fox 4's Sean Rabb out in the cold tonight. Not too cold just yet. Only a sport coat tonight, Sean, you stud, you. What's happening?
Well, it wasn't so bad till the darkness rolled in. It's a little cooler now, but nothing like what's going to happen later this week, Steve, when people are driving across the state to go visit loved ones for Christmas. You know what? Car trouble in this cold weather could leave you stranded in sub-freezing temperatures. Experts say now is the time to get ready. And the folks who answered 911 calls, paramedics, getting ready also. Temperatures by end of week could be as low as the frigid February of 2021.
Over that 3-day period, we treated 40 people for hypothermia, and they ranged from homeless folks to construction workers to elderly residents who were at home and didn't want to turn the heat on to save money.
Those kind of cold calls become priority for paramedics.
We bump up the priority to those calls so that we can get to that patient faster, get them into the warm ambulance.
Ambulances getting stocked right now.
Certainly, we want to make sure that we've got enough heat packs and IV fluids and blankets on the ambulances, that the crews are dressing very warmly.
Highways can become harsh ways when there's ice and snow. TxDOT watching the forecast, but right now, no plans to pre-treat roadways. They do want you, though, to pre-treat your sprinkler systems. Turn them off.
When those are located near city streets or frontage roads and they're left on during freezing weather, that can cause an immediate slick hazard to develop, and that can cause a lot of issues for drivers.
If it don't start, you ain't showing up for work.
At Dwight and Don's Auto Care in Mesquite, some getting vehicles checked out before the cold checks in.
This one's due for a battery. And it's been starting fine, but come here in the next few days, it may not start that great.
Justin Scott says it's important to check your battery's voltage because extremes, hot or cold, takes a toll.
There's going to be lots of people with batteries that don't start.
As important as the battery, the antifreeze.
And then this needle shows that this one's good to in the negative 30-degree range. So this cooling system's perfectly prepared for this weekend's what's going to be happening.
Especially with the weather getting as cold as it's going to get, that increases the risk for a roadside emergencies.
Be prepared with blankets, extra clothes, food in your car, and safety equipment so other drivers see you.
One way to do that is devices like this that you can put outside your vehicle just so other drivers can see you. And it's so important to be prepared for that road trip even before you set off.
So as the week goes on, we're going to start hearing from cities about their plans they're putting in place to provide shelters for folks on Friday and Saturday during the peak of this cold weather. We'll hear from Dallas tomorrow morning around 10:30. Steve?
Okay, Sean. Very good. Thank you.
Arrives. MedStar in Tarrant County is warning everyone to take this week's colder weather seriously. On top of dressing in layers, here are some other things you can do to stay safe in the cold. Be aware of the wind chill factor. Wind can cause body heat loss. Limit your time outdoors. And don't ignore shivering. That is an important first sign that your body is losing heat.
First responders are preparing for the below freezing temps that are coming to North Texas this week. MedStar says they are ready to respond to cold weather related illnesses like hypothermia and frostbite. They are stocking ambulances with more IV bags, heating pads, and blankets to warm patients quickly during an emergency. MedStar says the homeless, elderly, and people that work outside are at the highest risk to get sick. MedStar says it's important that you know the signs of hypothermia.
You're going to start shivering. Shivering is a normal reaction to your body to try and generate heat. Once the body is no longer able to compensate, then the person will become altered mental status. They may become unresponsive.
If you do have to go out in the freezing cold, MedStar says keep these tips in mind. Wear warm clothes like coats, gloves, hats, scarves, and boots. Wear several layers of clothes. Avoid getting wet. And if you can, limit the time you spend outdoors.
MedStar in Tarrant County is warning everyone to take this week's cold weather seriously. For those of you who can, they say dress in layers, limit your time outdoors, and pay close attention to your body if you do have to be outside. If you start to shiver, that's an important first sign that the body is losing